Thank
Madina, that
you.
amplifying the voice is really, really important because not everybody has the same resources. So that's why I agree with you. And also, Madina, would you like to tell me that in Pakistan, when there was a flood, it was a recent flood and it impacted a lot of cities. And people were not able to, they did not like the idea to move from their houses. The government was issuing warnings, although our government is very slow. It is the super slowest government in the whole world as far as the disaster management is concerned. And they issued the warnings until the flood was already there. They were very late and the people were not willing to leave the leave assets and everything. How do you see when there is a calamity in Africa, in your country, in your city, are people adaptive to just saving their lives, or they stick to, since you said that they stick to the old time method, they stick to their houses and they say no matter what happens we are staying here? And how do you change that?
One
Is that
thing
a
that I
problem
can say
also?
is that yes, it is a very big problem. What makes people to not want to leave? It's because of the way they feel about their communities. It's not easy to tell a 50-year-old woman or a 50-year-old man to move from his or her hometown that she's been living there since she was 1 or 2 year old. They've been already connected to that community. They feel that's their home. Climate change really takes away people's dignity. Imagine being forced to move out from the place where you've been calling home for over 50 years just because of a flood that's coming. And it's very sad to see that sometimes we don't get the alert earlier that this is coming and we need to be prepared. And I think it's a challenge that many countries globally are facing on how are we prepared before these effects of climate change before we start facing these effects of climate change, and even after we face them, how are we also preparing our communities? And I think this also relates to a psychological point where people need to be consulted and they need to feel and they need to be told that, hey, this is going to happen and it's very devastating, but it's going to be okay, and this is what we can do, because it's not only one person experiencing it. It's a big group of people, and so how can these people together comfort one another? I remember even in Tanzania we experienced a very devastating flood, and a lot of people were forced to move from their homes because they're very flooded. And you can see that it was also a very big challenge, but they had to move because the flood came with crocodiles. So we see that's another point of survival. But what we can say is that at least they did get support from the government and from other agencies, and at least it moved them from a certain situation to a better point. But not every community gets this, you see. So we need to set measures on how people will not only survive, but also they'll be mentally consulted, and also to make sure that this does not affect their well-being throughout their life.
I agree